पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर्द्यौः शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशाः शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिश्चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौः शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayeti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. We begin today on verse number 18. Let's chant together. Udara sarva evaite Jnani tvatmaiva me matam Asthitas sahi yuktatma Mameva nuttamam gatim. All of these are indeed noble, but the man of realization I regard as my very self. For with his mind fixed on me, he has taken refuge in me alone as the highest goal. We saw in the earlier two verses, beginning with verse 16, that Krishna speaks about 4 types of people who turn to God. We know that not everyone turns to God for what they need. Many don't. But among the few who turn to God for help, there are 4 categories. And these 4 categories in verse 16 were called Artha, Jidnyasu, Artharthi, and Jnani. All the 4 are disappointed in some ways. All the 4 are seeking something. Artha is the one who is disappointed with his or her condition. There is a lot of suffering. Suffering either at the physical, mental, emotional level. And such a person then turns to God to help overcome that suffering. Jidnyasu is suffering from lack of knowledge, that there are a lot of unanswered questions that we have about life, and we feel that on my own, my intellect is not strong enough, powerful enough to have all the answers. And these questions that I have about life, the answer can come only from the highest being. So some people turn to God to find answers to some of the fundamental questions about life. Artharthi. Then, of course, a considerable number of people turn to God when they want something. That something could be a material something in terms of whatever things that we need in life, or it could be emotional something. It could be like even when we say, I want peace of mind. So we pray to God, God give me peace of mind. So I'm seeking something and I turn to God for that. And the 4th category he calls as Jnani. Jnani here literally really means a knowledgeable person. Here neither means a person with a lot of academic qualifications, nor does it mean a person of enlightenment. Here it means a one who has understood enough about the world to know that I don't need to seek anything on its own merit, that the only person I seek is God. So now, this is important to remember. Even not all believers in God not everyone who says, I'm a devotee, is really seeking God. They are seeking a bunch of things, either freedom from suffering, answers to their questions, or fulfillment of their desires and needs. And so God becomes a means, God becomes an instrument through which I can get all these things. The only way the fourth one, jnani, is distinguished is that for the fourth one, God is not a means, God is an end in itself. And that's why that the fourth one is distinguished from the other three. And that's why in verse 17 he says that of all these, the fourth one, the person of knowledge, who seeks the Spirit alone, who speaks God alone, is in constant communion and single-minded devotion. He excels among them all. Now that doesn't mean that the other three are bad. Clearly, I mean, it's good, as I said last time, it's good to turn to God for help, even if it is for material things, than to seek, look upon it this way. It's good to seek divine help for a worldly goal than to seek a worldly help for a worldly goal. That's basically it. It's like, I mean, think about it this way. What do people do? If I want something, I can go and catch hold of some powerful person or a person of means who can help me and say, oh, and just beg from somebody else, some other person or some powerful entity, or I can go and pray to God. Most of us, most of the time, would much prefer to find a worldly means to a worldly goal because it's tangible. It's something that I can go and speak to someone, say, hey, can you please do this for me? I can see that person, I can hear that person's response, and although it may not always work, at least I'm sure I'm talking to somebody. Now, to go and pray to God requires a certain amount of strong faith that I'm praying to someone who is there. So prayer doesn't come naturally to everyone. And it doesn't come naturally to everyone, it's because we are not even sure whether prayer is just kind of my own imagination, just for the solace of my mind, or is it really I'm talking to someone who is there. So even for the prayer to become real, God must become real to us. And it's much better that we seek God's help for a worldly means than to speak for a worldly means to a worldly end. That's the idea. Now, is that the best? Maybe not. But that's definitely not the worst. So that's why he says, all of these are indeed noble because they have chosen to go to the right person to seek help. But among these, the fourth one, I regard as my very self. The reason is simple enough, because the fourth one seeks the Spirit. So when we call ourselves spiritual seekers, we have to ask whether I'm literally a spiritual seeker. Because a spiritual seeker means the one who seeks the Spirit. And then you say, am I seeking the Spirit as a means or as an end in itself? And because the fourth one seeks the Spirit as an end in itself, Krishna says that that person I regard as my very self, because Krishna, in the real nature, the divine being, is nothing but the self. So if I seek the self, I'm seeking divine for the divine's own sake. He has taken refuge in me alone as the highest goal. Sometimes we might discover that even when we begin, our prayers change. It's not unusual for people to start praying to God, asking, God, give me this, give me that. And of course, when our prayers are answered, our faith in God becomes strengthened. because we know, well, first of all, prayer works. We know, we become convinced that prayer works. And if it comes to me, then the giver of whatever things is there. So our faith becomes strengthened when our prayers are answered. But among some people, it may not happen by default in everyone's case. Sometimes among some who seek God's help for this or that, at some time the thought may come, why am I seeking all these ordinary things? When God can give me the highest, why should I ask for these ordinary stuff? Sometimes Ramakrishna said, it's like going to a king, the emperor, and the emperor says, ask whatever you want. And then you think about it and say, can you give me 1 pound of eggplants or something? And the emperor is capable of giving me so much more. And so then we ask for some petty little thing. Then if we just step back and say, wait a minute, here is this emperor. He can give me everything. So at some point, and our heart becomes more clear about the purpose and goal of life, we might discover that our prayers can evolve. Rather than, asking God to get rid of my headache is not bad, but God can give much more. And you can ask, it actually depends how smart you are in praying also. God is always smarter than you are. They say that one person was told, I give you one boon, ask for whatever you want. And then he said, Lord, please, if there's only one boon, see that I'm able to eat in a gold plate along with my great-grandchild. So we have asked a bunch of things. If you're going to have meal in a gold plate, you ask for wealth automatically. And if you're going to have it with your great-grandchild, then of course you ask for long life. So again, but this kind of worldly smartness may not work so much with God. But I'm just saying that our prayers can evolve. So that's why all of these people, so the prayer to God, seeking God with some desire in heart is called sakama bhakti. A bhakti or devotion with desire. And then there is a nishkama bhakti, a devotion without really wanting anything from God. And you will see that. And I think I mentioned it last time. One of the things that is often seen by people of means, whether they are wealthy or famous or celebrities, is that they are often lonely. And they are lonely in spite of having a lot of friends, a lot of fans. And the reason is that they can never really be sure that all these people who are hanging around me, are they hanging around me because they truly like me, or is because of the kind of things I can do for them, the kind of things I can give them. And that's, we don't know how God thinks. But when all these, imagine all these several devotees all surrounding, praying to God, and God could ask maybe something like this, well, how many of these people are here praying for me just because I can give them a lot of things? And how many people who are here just because they truly love me? And sometimes in spiritual life, teachers might test their students to see what is it that they really want. We read in the life of Ramakrishna that when Vivekananda, as a young man, Narendranath, his name was, used to visit Dakshineshwar. And we see in the beginning, we read in the life that he got such a big welcome. Ramakrishna saw him as a specially descended divine soul, and always got a very special treatment whenever he visited Ramakrishna's place. And then, after a few months, when Vivekananda, as a Narendranath he hadn't become Vivekananda then, Ramakrishna suddenly stopped talking with him, totally ignored him. Even when he would go to Dakshineshwar, he wouldn't speak with him, wouldn't actually even make eye contact with him. But Narendranath didn't stop going. He continued to go. Days passed, weeks passed, but he continued to ignore and he continued to go there. Then finally, Ramakrishna then asked him, after a long time, after several weeks had passed, he said, "Why do you come here? I don't even talk with you. I don't even look at you." And then Narendranath, of course, being Narendranath, he just said, "Do you think I come here to listen to you? I don't," he said, "I just come here because I like to see you." So he didn't come here because, oh, I'll get all these great teachings and then I'll become liberated, or he can do this for me. Nothing. I just like you, so I come here. Whether you speak, if you speak, that's great. Even if you don't speak, that's your will. But that's not going to affect my love for you. Think about it this way. As one scenario, let's say among, say, 4 children in a family, when the property has to be divided, and then it's decided that 3 of the children will get everything, the 4th child will not get anything. Now, it might seem very natural in this case to say, well, of course, the one who didn't get anything is going to get upset, is going to get mad. That might seem to be a very natural human reaction. And then we might say, think about it in a step back and say, why should I get mad? What would such a child think of his father or mother who's made that decision? Would my love for my parents be affected in any way? How would I think if I don't get anything, and in fact it would seem as if the others have gotten more than I have? Now that's where our love truly gets tested. So we might cover it up by saying, oh, there is justice and equality and all of that. But truly, where love is there, none of these calculations come. And so that's the kind of love this jnani has, the 4th category has for God. Oftentimes you will see, even people who are very religious, who pray, and if something not very good happens in their life, or something very terrible happens, and many people get disillusioned. They think, oh, I've been praying, I've been doing all this puja, and I've been doing all this, and why did God did this to me? I will stop praying. I won't stop going to the temple. And these things are not uncommon. And so that's the time we knew. So why? I was praying to God because God was giving me all these things, and now it doesn't happen, so finished. My contract with God is terminated. But a true devotee would say, I love God anyway. Let miseries come, let difficulties come. My love for God is not dependent on God just doing everything that I like. If God doesn't do what I like, then bye-bye. But that's basically most human relationships are like that. We are close to people so long as they are mutually beneficial. When one side kind of says, okay, you don't want to be friends with me, I don't want to be friends with you. You are nasty with me, I'm nasty to you. You do this to me, but is my relationship with God exactly the way I relate to other human beings? Then that's a very immature form of relationship. A devotee, this higher form of bhakti, it's called parabhakti. That is when you say, God, whether misery comes or problems come, I just love you. That's the nature of true love. And when one reaches that level of love, it's then that one becomes a jnani. That's what he's saying. And that's what he describes in the verse number 19. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. At the end of innumerable births, the man of realization takes refuge in me, knowing that all this is Vasudeva. Such a saint is exceedingly rare. So, this awareness, this higher form of love comes at the end of innumerable births, means it doesn't happen automatically. It's not a default situation. That if I have continued to struggle to purify my heart, and purification of heart means that I eliminate selfishness from my heart, selfishness, jealousy, all of these negativities. The more these negativities go out from my heart, the heart becomes purer. As the heart becomes purer, I become capable of having this higher form of love. As long as these negativities remain, there is love for God, but that love is kind of contaminated by all what sometimes are called the Shadripuhu, 6 enemies, which include anger, jealousy, and so on, envy. So my love for God is not false. So when we say that we devotees, we love God, that's true. But that love is kind of gotten mixed up with all these negative things. The more we are able to, it's like purifying of gold. The more you eliminate all the impurities, then it becomes really pure gold. So our love for God hasn't become fully pure yet. When it becomes pure, then all these worldly calculations will get out of it. And then we will reach this highest state. That's why he says, such a person takes refuge in me at the end of the innumerable births, knowing that all this is Vasudeva. Vasudeva here really means not Krishna, the historical Krishna. Vasudeva means the all-pervading reality. The literal meaning, if you go to the root meaning of the term Vasudeva, really means that which pervades the whole universe. It's an all-pervading reality, which is the Atman, the spirit. So one who has taken refuge in the spirit, interestingly, that was also the teaching that the Buddha gave. When the Buddha was about to pass away, all his disciples gathered around him, and they were weeping. As of course, any near or dear ones, if they are about to die, we cry. And of course, Buddha, he is their supreme teacher. He was about to pass away, and all the disciples around were crying. And Buddha said, stop crying. What have you learned from me? And among the things he told them was, Atma Deepo Bhava. Be a light unto yourself. That's the same thing, that's what is being said here. That the more we depend on anything outside of ourselves, we can never be completely free. And Atma Deepo Bhava means to depend on the true self, the Atma, the spirit. And that is what Vasudeva here really means. So once we know the spirit, we know the entire universe. Because when you see, it's like this. When we speak about, oh, the whole world is one, and we often speak about, it seems pretty abstract way, oh, everything has come from the one. What does that mean really? That everything, in reality, everything is one? Because, well, in reality, at least our present reality, everything is different. There are living objects, non-living objects. Among the living, every one of us is a unique person. Among the non-living, every object is different. So what does it mean that everything is one? At the material level, things are different. There is no denying it. The only thing that is one is at the spiritual level. At the material level, we can speak about equality. At the spiritual level, you cannot speak of equality because there is only one. So the spirit, you and I, we have, all of us here, we have different bodies and different minds. But the spirit is concerned, it's the one spirit. But how does it feel then to be different? The example that is given in Vedanta text, it's like if you have, say, 10 buckets filled with water, and there is the sun shining above, and you look into each of those buckets, you'll find the sun, the reflection of the sun in all of them. Now, because there are 10 buckets, you won't see only 1/10 of the sun in each bucket. You will see the full sun reflected in each bucket. But the real sun is only one. Exactly in the same way, the real spirit, the divine, is only one. Now that divine is reflected in this container, this bucket of the body and mind. That's why we feel as if every one of us has a different spirit. But the spirit is one, and that is what this person realizes. And therefore, this person is exceedingly rare. Now, when you say this person is exceedingly rare, what it means is that every one of us has the capacity, the potentiality to be that rare person. So you and I, every one of us here, can be that person. We have the capacity to do so. In order for us to be that rare person, we have to eliminate the negativities from the heart. Our heart must become pure. The more unselfish we become, the more we eliminate anger, hatred, jealousy from our heart, we can then become true jnani and become dear to Krishna. Verse number 20. Kamaistaistairhritajnanaha prapadyante nyadevataha tam tam niyamamasthaya prakritya niyata swaya. Deprived of discrimination by particular desires, they worship other deities, observing particular rites, being swayed by their own nature. So it's only very few who seek the spirit for the spirit's own sake. Most people follow what's mentioned in verse number 20. Deprived of discrimination by particular desires. So we all have different desires. And then we then seek, they worship other deities. Now, other deities means any entity we approach without the awareness that that entity is this infinite being. And so sometimes they are termed as demigods, that you go, they say, oh, if I want this particular thing, there is some distant, some shrine somewhere. If you go and pray, that thing will be, that deity will give you this. If you want this, then you go to some other place and worship the other deities. So we have these kind of specific forms of temples or places of worship or deities who kind of become known for something or the other. And then once you know it, then everybody rushes there. You see, for one who is suffering, it really doesn't matter what deity you are worshipping. These religious quarrels about, oh, my God is real or your God is real or my God is more powerful or your God is more powerful. It's more a luxury for people who have time to argue about these things. But for someone who is suffering, like, I just want to get over my suffering. I really don't care who makes it all right. In Bombay, where I spent a number of years, there are three places. Well, there are several, but among them there are these three places. One is there is one Siddhivinayak temple, in one of the suburbs in Bombay. It was formerly a very small little shrine of Ganesha, and now it's become really big. But when I was growing up, it was a very little small shrine, and so it became known as a very Jagrata Devata, as a very awakened deity. That whatever you pray for there, your prayers will be answered. And so, of course, many people started lining up there. Eventually, I think it's probably Monday. Is it Monday? Which day? Tuesday.
Yeah. So every Tuesday, the lining of, went on increasing so much, and not just Hindus. There were Muslims, there were Christians, everyone, because everyone's suffering. And if Ganesha can make it all right, I don't care who makes it, everyone. Then I think it's on Wednesdays. Wasn't it that there is one St. Michael Church in Mahim? That's Wednesdays, right? And then there is one church there, which also became known that if it'll answer your prayers. And oftentimes, in fact, they even sell their, I think, candles. So if you have your hand is aching, then you offer a hand-shaped candle or something like that. Anyway, so that became known that the prayer. So usually the same people who would go for this Tuesday, then the whole thing would line up there for this thing. And then I think it was Friday. There's this Haji Ali in near Worli. There is a place of worship or adoration in the Muslim community, and so again huge crowds there because it was also believed that prayers would be answered. So for a lot of people, they just want to get freedom from suffering. It doesn't matter whether it's a Hindu god or a Christian god or a Muslim who does it. How many of us, when we pray with the awareness that this is one infinite being, and so that's what when he says other deities here. So we need to keep in mind the particularities that are referred to here. That only if I go to some specific shrine and a deity in some specific form, called by some specific name, then my prayer will be answered. So I'm really my devotion and adoration gets particularized to localized to some form, some place, some name. Also included in this are I think secular deities. By secular deities, I mean while approaching your congressman or approaching some local big shot to do things, well, they're kind of deity because you have some problem, and then you are approaching them, and not exactly, you may not, well, sometimes people do that even to these secular deities, but it's a kind of a prayer that you do even to people wielding power. So there are these visible secular deities in politics and so on, and then there are these other deities. So any kind of a authoritative source I go to, which is other than the awareness of that one infinite being, will all come under the other deities. And so, depending on the things that we desire in life, we might be inclined to approach different places, different things to have our problems solved. And that is what I mean by being swayed by their own nature. And it's not, and it works. That's the thing. If it wouldn't work, nobody would do it. It works. People get what they want, which is why people then line up and get it. So it's not that it doesn't work. So that's what he describes in the following verses. Verse 21. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktaha shraddhaya architumichchati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. Whatever form a particular devotee wishes to worship with faith, concerning that alone I make his faith unflinching. And we see that everything happens through God's grace. Even these so-called other deities that we see, God is the substratum. The Spirit is substratum of everything. So it's not as if God is present in my heart, but is not present in the heart of these other deities. That doesn't work. So God is present everywhere. God is present even in these other deities. And therefore he says that wherever people's temperament and tendencies take them, wherever they feel drawn by faith, I stabilize their faith in that direction. Verse 22. Sataya shraddhaya yuktaha
तस्याराधनमीहते लभते च ततः कामान् मयैव विहितान् हितान्. Endowed with that faith, he worships that deity and from him gets his desires, which are indeed granted by me alone. So even the desires that are fulfilled by worshipping all these other deities ultimately really come from God, because everything comes from God. Except that I'm not getting it, I'm getting it in a roundabout way, indirectly. So don't imagine that going to the other deities is like I'm going somewhere away from God. I'm not going away from God. Nobody can go away. How can you go away from your own true self? So really nobody can go away in a physical sense. All that could happen is that the veil is still there. I'm not seeing the spirit as spirit. I'm seeing the spirit covered by these different names and forms. So the covering is there, but even those desires are fulfilled by God's grace alone. Verse 23. Antavattu phalam tesham tadbhavatyalpamedhasam devan devayajo yanti madbhakta yanti mamapi. But that fruit of these men of little understanding has an end. The worshippers of gods go to the gods, but my devotees come to me. Now, sometimes some people take a very narrow, literal meaning, which is not really intended here, by saying, well, my devotees mean Krishna's devotees. So only if you worship Krishna, then only you will go to God. On worshipping anybody other than Krishna, you're going someplace else. That's a very really laughable explanation, really. And sometimes we have stories in our tradition about these narrow-minded views about my God being better than your God. And so they say that one Vaishnava who was worshipping Krishna, he said, this whole Bhavasagara, this ocean of samsara, the only way you can go across this ocean of samsara, Krishna is the boatman. You get into this boat and Krishna will take you to the other side of the samsara. Other than Krishna, nobody can take you. And so there was this one worshipper of the Devi, the Shakta. And so he was very annoyed that he said, only worshipping Krishna, you will be taken on the other shore, because Krishna is the only boatman. And then this person says, well, my Devi, the goddess, she is the empress of the whole universe. She is not going to personally carry people across, so she just employed this boatman to do the job. Anyway, there are a lot of these kind of funny stories to show how ridiculous sometimes these arguments can be with people with the narrow-minded approach. So the idea is this: so long as what I seek and from whom I seek are limited entities, I'm going to remain locked up into this limited universe. And a limited universe is the samsara. And that's why the process is cyclical. As long as I'm stuck up in name and form, I'm going to go round and round. That's why then, that's how the rebirth and reincarnation, being born again, dying again, born again, die again, that's all this will happen. So long as I seek limited things from limited entities. Now that has to change. Only when I begin to seek the infinite, and no finite thing can give me the infinite, only the infinite can give me the infinite. So and this doesn't happen overnight, need not happen overnight. We just have to see that we seek the highest. So one starting point would be for us to ask, what do I really want in life? What am I really seeking in life?
and see how many of those things are limited in nature. Because, and that's why he said, the fruits of these people, a little understanding has an end. It's like, let's say someone wants a new iPhone. And so say, pray to God, God, give me, somehow make it possible for me to get a new iPhone, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. But still, an iPhone is a limited entity. And it'll come to an end, because once I get an iPhone, then what? Because that's come to an end, the wanting. So a lot of these, and then of course, other kinds of problems come. Oh God, I have this iPhone. Please make sure that it doesn't break. Or please, 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 please see that it doesn't get stolen. And so anyway, so the more we seek after limited entities, we get we get kind of stuck in this limited world. And so the first thing that we can do is no harm in seeking limited things, but at least with the awareness that it's limited. Because if we are aware that it's limited, then its loss at some point in future will not throw us off balance. Because that's what happens. What oftentimes brings misery and suffering in life is that things which we had, and people, it's not just things, our possessions, everything that we see as mine or ours, could be objects, could be people, could be everything. Sooner or later, everything that I see as mine will be taken away from me. No one can stop it. Intellectually, objectively, we all understand it. We don't always remember it. And because we don't remember it, when these things which are ours are taken away from us, we feel sad, we cry, we weep, we get depressed, we are upset. Now that's suffering. All of that can be prevented, provided we realize that everything is perishable. The only entity that's not perishable is the Atman. So one who seeks the Atman is seeking the imperishable. Seeking anything else is perishable. So seek, but recognize that it's still a perishable. It's like the other day I went to the post office, and I had to mail something. I mail actually one of the CDs. And so one of the standard questions they ask is like, does it contain something hazardous or perishable? And I just told the person, I said, everything is perishable, I told him. And then that at the post office, she just looked at me and said, you are very funny. It's not funny, it's the truth. Everything is perishable. Anyway, but at least when we use the word perishable here, it's in a much deeper sense than at the way they speak in the post office, or when you say perishable goods. Everything is perishable. Anyway, so any thoughts or ideas or questions about what we have seen up to this point?
Swamiji, the types of people described in verses 16, the 4 different types of people, 3 of them, they're seeking something. The 4th one actually is beyond that stage, is basically already...
No, the 4th one is also seeking.
Yeah.
They are all seekers.
Yeah.
The 4th one is seeking God. The others are not seeking God, they are seeking other things, but want God's help.
Yeah.
The 4th one is seeking God.
But won't you call the 4th one like a jnani already, because he's seeking only God, not the other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in his eyes, probably he would see all those 3 the same. He sees them as a spirit, not...
No, he is not yet seeing anybody as spirit.
Yeah.
If he's already seeing everybody as spirit, he doesn't have to seek anything. Then he's already enlightened. So jnani here doesn't mean enlightened.
Yeah.
I mean, look at it this way. We are all jnanis here. Now, when the word jnani there are gradations among jnanis, for instance. For instance, now, consider this way. Those who have no idea about the Gita, who have not studied the Gita at all, well, compared to them, every one of us here is a jnani.
Yeah.
We know more than they do. So we cannot say we are ignorant. We have knowledge. Now, has this knowledge liberated us? Has it given us moksha? Not yet. So we are kind of, say, 10% or 20% jnanis.
Yeah.
Now, an enlightened person is 100% jnani.
Yeah.
So, but they are all jnanis. So it's a kind of a spectrum.
Yeah.
And we have to move up the spectrum. The more we are able to eliminate the weaknesses within us, we'll become better jnanis, if you like.
Yeah.
But that's the idea.
So an enlightened person would see everybody as a spirit.
Yes.
But it sounds like the word says 17, even God is not looking at us the same way, because it's looking at the person, the fourth type of person is excels among all other type of people. So why is that way though? I would think in terms of the God's view, everybody is the same.
Sure, yeah. In God's view, everything is same. But God is speaking with us. He's telling us.
Yeah.
Now, the whole Gita could be just one sentence.
Yeah.
Everything is spirit.
Yeah.
That doesn't help us, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when teachers teach their students, they look at the problem from the student's perspective and then explain it. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense. I mean, why would then even Krishna make 4 categories? Krishna is really just saying everything is the Atman.
Yeah.
So Krishna is trying to see the world as we see it. And from our perspective, we see that there are people who seek God's help for suffering. There are people who have questions. There are people who seek things.
Yeah.
So he's just pointing out the reality as seen from the eyes of the ignorant. You see, remember that this is the teaching Krishna is giving to Arjuna. So he's describing the world as Arjuna sees it. Only then Arjuna will be able to relate to that teaching. You see. Yeah. So that is one of the challenges for teachers, is that they have to come down to the level of the student for the student to understand what it is. If they remain at that level, then there is no communication possible. Yeah.
I just had a comment, Swamiji, that I think you've given a new definition to the term God complex. That if God truly gets a complex that everybody's after me for something, this is a new way of thinking of what a God complex is. That's mine.
Maharaj, when we say that our God is better than your God, even though we are Jnani, that we know that God is there, but ego is there, and we are seeing God as an object. So that's why we say that our religion or our God is, even though we are Jnani, we know that God is something better than us. Mm-hmm. So that's why the ego is there, but we have the jnana.
Yeah, I think it can happen due to more than one reason. One reason is I truly believe that there are many gods. And then I believe my God is better than yours. My God is more powerful than you. If my God had a fight, then my God can defeat you. That's one way. But sometimes, even when people know that there is only one God, and if they say my God is better than yours, it could mean that my understanding of God is better than your understanding of God.
Still, we are seeing God as the object.
No, not necessarily as an object. It's just that the way I see God is a better way of seeing God than the way you see God. But actually, all of these, I think, ideas are, all of these quarrels, whether my God is better than yours, etc., is actually futile in many ways, although not many people look at it that way. Because, well, so what if my God is greater than yours? So what? You stick with your God, I stick with my God. I mean, but not very people think this way. People have gone to wars. There have been bloodshed. There have been killings over this thing. It appears silly, but doesn't appear silly to those who look at it in a different way. Yeah.
Raj, one question. In what way did you mean at the beginning when you described that if one seeks worldly ends, it's better to reach through a divine means or divine means rather than worldly means? Because at first thought it seems the opposite. It seems that if I wanted a worldly end, like if I wanted to buy a house, I'd probably be able to get it much faster if I went through a worldly means, like, mortgage or whatever. So in what way did you mean that a divine mean is better?
Okay, good. So that's a good question. I think I should have clarified it a little bit more. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you want to buy a house, you work hard, collect sufficient money, buy a house, fine. That's no problem. But I could do it illegally. I could go and kill some. I don't have enough money. I don't have a patience to wait until I have enough money to buy a house. So I go and rob somebody. I go and cheat. I go and swindle money, things like that. And so that's a worldly way of doing it. A spiritual way would be, you see, the reason comes because the spiritual way would be, I pray to God. God, I want a house. Please give me. Or I go and buy a lottery ticket and say, God, please let me win the lottery because I want to get a house. Now, that's still seeking God's help. So that's what I meant. So yeah, good. So that was a good question because there are the ways to get it in a legitimate way, even in a worldly way, which should be okay. But a lot of people don't have the patience for it. In fact, you see, in the Vedas, there are some rituals which are like, if you want to subdue your enemy, do this ritual. If you want to kill somebody, do this ritual. Now, this seems awful, that why would a religious text have even show ways of like killing your enemies or bringing harm to somebody? This seems so it doesn't seem to make sense. So I discussed this with many years ago with a Vedanta teacher under whom I studied, and he said something very interesting. And so that was in my mind when I made this comment. So he said, if I'm really mad with somebody, if I really want to kill somebody, I will just take a gun and shoot that person. But if I believe in God, if I'm a devotee of God, but I'm still mad at that person, I still want to kill that person. And so instead of going and killing that person, I say, oh, here is this ritual. By doing this ritual, I can kill that person. Now, what that ritual oftentimes involves is that fast for 30 days first, strict fasting, and then go, and it's a big vrata. It's like you go fast, or then you live on only one glass of water. I'm just kind of making it all up, but the idea is it's very tough. Or do this, lit a big fire and offer this 1,000 libations for next 3 months, things like that. And now, if I really truly am a religious person, but I want to kill that person, I will go through all this. But when I'm going through all this, after some time, I'm thinking like, what am I doing? Is it so that it gives me some chance to change my mind. It gives my chance to wait a minute. What has been wrong with me? I can deal with this in a different way. The person doesn't have to kill. So that he said is a reason why sometimes you might find certain things. Now, one important point to mention here is, nowhere in the text it is said, you must kill your enemies. Actually, all of these rituals mentioned in the Vedas all begin with if. If you have a desire for this, do this. So it's not that, oh, because it is in the Vedas, we all must go and do it. That's not the idea. So even, they said, if you want to go to heaven, do this ritual. If you don't want to go to heaven, you don't have to do it. So that has to be kept in mind. So don't be sometimes shocked if you find, it's not like these are the only rituals. That's not what it is. These are kind of very small in number, but they are there. But try to understand why they are there. Because I spoke with that teacher and I said, but why should it be there in the first place? And what his point was that if it's not there, that it's not going to stop people from getting angry. That's not going to stop people from wanting, from not having enemies. It's not like people have enemies because enemies are mentioned in the Vedas. No, people have enemies, that's it. Now, whether it's mentioned in a religious text or not, people are going to do it. Now, what the religious texts do is, can we just, something in which direction their tendencies are going, can we kind of divert it and make it a more circuitous route so that first of all it's going to take a little longer time and the process will help them reflect a bit more, help them, because a lot of these rituals involve meditation, involve prayer. So a lot of opportunity for introspection and then changing one's mind about what we were seeking. That's the idea. Atharva Veda has really many of these things which sometimes may sound like black magic, but this is the psychology behind it.
Swamiji, about trying to remember that everything that is mine is eventually going to go, is a fairly dispassionate effort. We have to be very detached and dispassionate. At the same time, we do have to seek purity of heart, and we are not there yet. So we have to work on caring, loving, which comes with a lot of passion. Mm-hmm. So is it possible to be both dispassionate and aware and still be in the worldly routine passionately?
Actually, yes. It's like this. For instance, if you bring flowers at home to decorate, the flowers are going to dry up after a few days. They're going to perish. So when the roses or something that you bring, and after 4 or 5 days it dries up, you don't sit and cry. You say, "Oh, you have left me and gone." You don't say that because you knew it's going to go. So with that full awareness, you brought it. As long as they were there, you enjoyed them. That doesn't prevent you from enjoying the beauty of the flowers, or the fragrance of the flowers. But when they go, you are able to let go because you know they were going to go anyway. So exactly in the same way with the people around us, our family, our friends, sooner or later, they will go away. Well, sooner or later, we will go away too, in this form. So once we are aware of the perishable things, the parting will not be painful. We will not suffer. We'll be able to just say, that's how things are. Because a lot of the suffering in life comes because we are not able to deal with separation, deal with the parting. Actually, deal with acquisition also, because not everything that we acquire is good or joy-bearing. So sometimes some problems come, and then we need not think that any problem that has come that is permanent either. If everything is perishable, the problem is perishable too. If heaven is perishable too, if heaven is perishable seems like a bad idea, then it's also good to remember hells are perishable too. So everything is perishable. The only thing, everything that is mine will be taken away from you. The only thing that cannot be taken away from you is you. So everything that is mine will be taken away, but nobody can take me away from me. And that real me is the Atman. The real me is the spirit. Death really means the body is taken away from me. And because the body can be separated from me, I'm not the body. So everything that can be taken away from me is not me. The only thing that cannot be taken away from me is me. That's it. Okay, so we will stop here. And when we meet next week, we will resume on verse number 24. Om Jananim Saratam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhuhu. We bow down to Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. On Sunday, we will have Antar Yoga as usual with special program with prayer, spiritual readings, guided meditation, reflection, and music. So you're welcome for the program on Sunday. Next Wednesday, we will continue with the study of the Gita, and Tuesday and Saturday, our Arati and meditation will also continue as usual. We'll conclude with the prayer now on page 3 of your books. Om. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.